Sometimes it's the small details that make something feel really special. Nothing has already made a name for themselves in making unique smartphones both inside and out, and now it is more affordable than ever. And you know what, after about a week or so of using this $349 device, I have to say, it might be one of my favorites of the year already. Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? I don't want to lift the phone up because I might stop the glyph timer that I'm using to steep my tea, but in any case, this is the Nothing Phone 2A. Now, this isn't necessarily a real-world camera test, but you are going to see a lot of photos and videos coming from this device. I'm just going to be presenting a lot of it and giving some of my thoughts a little bit later, so I want to know what you think about the photos and videos coming out of the Nothing Phone 2A in the comments down below. And then I'll be chiming in from time to time to just give you some extra perspective on this honestly pretty exciting and almost somewhat surprising smartphone. Kind of hoping for a miracle, but the front-facing camera, I mean, this is not a surprise for a phone that is this affordable. Front-facing camera, no 4K video recording. That being said, we're starting things off here, or maybe coming back to this, with just a little bit of a usual scenario for these parts of the camera test, and that's food. Getting some food with a couple of good friends. All right, finally made it to the destination. It's actually at this place called Tilt Coffee here in downtown LA, and used the Nothing Phone.
Josh, put your pants on. You can't be in public without
Damn it. This is what I get for trying to do my work around my friends.
Don't do it around friends. Were you actually recording?
I was. I have to give the Nothing Phone 2A so much credit for actually standing out in a sea of smartphones that look a lot like the previous edition and the edition before that. I mean, iterations are just par for the course when it comes to the smartphone market, and Nothing is kind of in a unique position right now because they are still fairly fresh. I mean, they've only had 2 smartphones before this, so the whole idea of having a slightly transparent back with some of the bits actually showing, it still feels a little bit fresh, and I don't know when it's going to get old. Now, I do have the darker edition of this phone, so it's a little bit harder to see all of the bits underneath the surface on the backing, but ultimately I still think this is a wonderful looking device. Now, while it might be easy to think you can't expect too much from a phone that is sub $400, I actually feel like Nothing has struck a nice balance here of making the phone feel pretty nice without having to compromise too much on the overall experience. I mean, there is plenty of bezel around the display, but it almost gives it a sort of framing, and it's something that I think actually fits in with the aesthetic that Nothing is trying to provide in their software, in their launcher. And it's still a great screen. It's a 6.7-inch AMOLED display, so you have plenty of those vivid colors, and it still provides 120 Hz refresh rate. It might be plastic all around, maybe cheaper materials and whatnot, and I don't mean cheap in a bad way, I just mean it's a more affordable device overall, but there are still some aspects on here that I wish we would get in our much more expensive flagships, like for example, having a textured feel for the actual frame. I do wish I got the white edition of this phone, that way the transparent look is a little bit more obvious and the fingerprints perhaps would have been less obvious. Well, there you go, the tea is ready. I have a special tea from Korea that I got a little while back in Seoul from a company called Asaluk, and this is one of their master brews. There tends to be some pretty great teas in the Jeju region of South Korea, so if you are interested in just exploring a little bit more of Asia in terms of teas, you can actually go to Korea for some of that. Focus is hard, but it is important, so maybe that'll be the reminder that I give you that something as simple as an affordable smartphone just kind of reminds you what the essentials truly are in our lives, in this case in our tech and smartphone lives, but it's good to actually think that way with things in general. And of course, I'll ask all of you, what's going on, everybody? Let me know how you're doing in the comments down below. How do you just tend to focus and take some time for yourself throughout the day? Let me know in the comments down below, and thank you for hanging with me during this tea break, because I hope you come for the tech, but you stay for the tea. All right, let's get back to talking about this phone that I really like a lot. Which brings us to another iconic design feature from Nothing, and that would be the glyphs. They're different in the Nothing 2A in that there's less of them, but they are also up here encircling the camera package. Jumping into the glyph interface settings, you can see that the various ringtones are still here, and they're just going to use the different lights that are available at that portion of the phone. And of course, you can add contacts so that certain glyph patterns will be custom to them. But in scrolling down the settings, you'll see that there are some features that are not available on the 2A compared to the Nothing Phone 2, which probably makes a lot of sense, but I just wanted to point that out. The main one that's missing that I prominently showed in the Nothing Phone 2 video was the battery charge indicator. That would have been on the bottom here on the Nothing Phone 2. Instead, you still get the volume control, which I still think this one could have been fine to use for battery charge, but I get that this one is pulling like multiple duties, not just as the volume indicator, but also for the glyph timer that I used for the tea break. And it's nice to see that Nothing is not only doubling down on it, but other people are embracing the glyphs on these phones. For example, the glyph progress bar for certain applications is, well, progressing. You not only have Uber now to see how far your Uber is via those lights, but now you also have other apps like the calendar, which I believe would be a countdown to an event that might be coming up. It's easy to get enamored with the design aspects of a Nothing device, and that's a credit to the company because first impressions are everything, but I still find myself going to the Nothing Ear Stick or the Nothing Ear 2 because they just look the coolest out of all of my various audio products. And now when it comes to the Nothing Phone 2 and the Nothing Phone 2A, you kind of get that same feeling. So if you are committing to a smartphone, especially at this price, this one might be one of the best looking ones, and thus probably the one that you will be happy to have on the daily. This is the Fujiwara Tofu Cafe, and if that sounds familiar, it really should because this is an Initial D inspired cafe. A phone of this style would fit right in with like the Initial D anime and manga style. Seriously, like the Nothing Phone 2A really shows all of the company's already well-documented style in a phone that you can probably afford more easily than even their own other flagship devices. I am definitely coming back here. Fujiwara Tofu Cafe. Even got some merch. When I really like a place, I usually tend to buy some of their merch. But this time, not clothing. I'll just go ahead and have this. Don't spill the water. Don't spill the tofu, but in this case, don't spill the water. Or the tea. I actually have tea in here. So let's get going. On the one hand, you can say that the outer design of the phone has a lot of thought put into it, but you have to say the same about the Nothing launcher. You just have a lot of options available to you, not just in the way that things look, but in the different tools that are available. All the essentials are here, like the agenda widget, a clock here, and by the way, that hour and minute hand combination looks a lot like the sim tool that comes with the phone, doesn't it? And then the weather widget that itself goes into the weather app that Nothing have created, which falls in line with their aesthetic. As long as you're into the monochromatic look, there's a lot to like here. After all, you still have all of the different icons for your various applications, and by installing the Nothing icon pack from the Play Store, everything could follow this particular design. One thing I did do, however, was I went into the settings, which I'll just show you right now. You can go to customization, go to the icon pack, and you can apply the monochromatic Nothing type icons to just the home screen. The reason why I did that is because actually deciphering some of the many applications that I have could be a bit difficult, so when I swipe up, it's good to have just sort of the original in-color applications. I still would set up various folders and whatnot for my most used applications, but for ones that I'm just kind of quickly searching for that sometimes usage, it's easier to just look at it with the original icon. Utility simply meets style. I mean, you have things like the folders, which allow you to click through them in order to get to those applications. You don't have to open the folder and then click the icon. And then one thing I have to give a lot of credit to is this camera shortcut widget. Essentially, you get to see exactly where in the camera app you're going to go, and that is fully customizable. So if I just go over here, I can change it to what mode I want to use, whether it's photo, video, or anything else, what focal length I want, so it's actually going to go straight to the zoom level that I want, or just use the front-facing camera. And then you can even give it a bit of a label so you know exactly what you're trying to do, or you could just keep the spirit of what you're trying to do when you hit that icon to go into the camera app. And you can have multiple of these. So I was actually thinking of having a whole page where it went straight to certain aspects of the camera app, so I could just go straight to that feature without having to go into the camera and then swipe around to get there. It's just all really well thought out, and one of the best things that I think a lot of you will appreciate is that, well, this is a nothing phone, so as far as bloatware is concerned, there is nothing of that here. And while in my app drawer I clearly have a ton of different things here for games and productivity and whatnot, that is my doing, and that is all based on my own intentionality. If you want to be as minimal as you possibly can be, you can, thanks to the way that Nothing has put together this entire package. If there's one part of the design of this phone that I'm not the biggest fan of, it would have to be the sound design. While the glyphs are cool, the outer design is cool, and the software is definitely one of my favorites out there, these sounds, I have to admit, are just not... they're not really doing it for me. They're a little bit too space agey, and honestly, I think if they went to even like, okay, hold on, that's too much. Even just a slight pivot to things like 8-bit sounds and chip tunes would have been perfect, especially for a phone that's trying to pull on our retro nostalgia. Oh, the thing I wanted to say in this segment. The phone did a really great job yesterday as far as battery life is concerned. I was really surprised. Now, here's the screenshot, and I was using the phone for basically 12 straight hours from 10:30 to 10:30, and I was going around everywhere. I was using the phone via Bluetooth to my car instead of using Android Auto, which would obviously keep the battery topped up. So I was making sure to drain the battery consistently throughout the day, which is pretty wild because normally on high-end flagship smartphones, I tend to get like 5 hours of screen on time, and that seems good to me considering I'm more of a heavy user on those days when I'm testing out the phone. But with this one, I had camera usage a lot, I had playing games a lot via emulators and whatnot, and I was using YouTube like music in the background while I was driving. So there was plenty of stuff going on, and I got so much screen on time and battery life. I was honestly really surprised. So clearly I've been having a really good time with the Nothing Phone 2A. It's providing just the right amount of performance for pretty much everything that I want to do on the daily, and that battery life has been somewhat exceptional. Kudos to Nothing for providing a $349 phone that has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Whatever the optimizations are with that and the MediaTek Dimensity 7200 Pro, it's working really well. 7 hours of screen on time, like I said before, is something I don't really see very often, even in flagship smartphones. This is an affordable smartphone, and if you are looking to it as like something that you can get easily but still want to have some of those higher powered experiences, you should be able to do a lot of that on here. You can play pretty much any mobile game that is in the Google Play Store, like most smartphones would be able to. It just may not be able to go all the way to like the max settings. But one of the things that I usually find is a little bit difficult for more budget phones like this is emulation. I've been playing Citra, RIP, I've been playing Citra on here because I'm still revisiting a couple of games that I just never finished. So I was playing it on there and it was all working beautifully with just a couple of stutters here and there. So if you are going to be going back to like classic games, there's so many of them in the Play Store, like Final Fantasy games and old Grand Theft Autos, this is still going to be a good place to be able to do it. Slap on a controller and you'll be able to play very effectively on here. And while there's enough brand awareness for Nothing to not have to call this a sleeper hit, I do think that this is a phone that should be on everybody's list if they're just looking for something simple that works and is still a lot of fun. The one place that may not hit those higher marks, as you've been seeing throughout this video already, is probably in the cameras. Credit where credit is due. Nothing was able to put two 50 megapixel sensors on this one, a wide and ultra wide sensor, and of course the main sensor is going to be the one you want to use as much as possible. Once again, I want to know all of your thoughts on the photos and videos you've been seeing here, but the best compliment I can give this camera package is that when it hits, it actually hits. There are certain photos that I took even just recently during my trip to Louisville, Kentucky, where I was just hanging out with the homies, and I took a few selfies and I took some photos of my drinks and whatnot at the Angel's Envy Distillery, and I was really happy with those photos, even days later after I clearly have sobered up from that experience. Which tells me that the Nothing Phone 2A will be a good companion to have in those scenarios where all of a sudden you have the urge to just capture some memories. But for every other moment outside of that, it is a solid performing device that provides a little bit more fun compared to much of its competition. And that's why in no uncertain terms, I do think that the Nothing Phone 2A is going to be one of the top phones when I look back on 2024 and think of what my favorite devices were. Every aspect of the experience on here has been tailor-made by a company that is just trying to have some fun and trying to be different, and it actually all kind of comes together to create one cohesive identity. So it's a shame that this phone is not more readily available here in the US. Like, you can get it by going into their developer program, which is available to everybody, and I am actually a part of it. That's how I got the Nothing Phone 1 originally. But a package at $349 like this, I feel does deserve to be as available as possible to as many people as possible. Because from top to bottom, from unboxing to daily experience, there's just so much thought put into the experience of the Nothing Phone 2A that I really feel like it's probably their best offering they've had yet. Part of that is due to the lower price point, but it's within limitation that true innovation and creativity can be born. And thus the Nothing Phone 2A is certainly something. I want to know what you think about the Nothing Phone 2A in the comments down below, especially if you plan to get one by joining Nothing's developer program. It'd be nice to see how many of you actually want to join it in order to get your hands on a device like this. But from there, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much once again for kicking it with me today. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.